is going on and what people can look for. Father, we ask that your holy blessing be on this, and we ask it all in Jesus' name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All righty, thank you. Well, I want to welcome you guys this evening, and all our online people too, I want to welcome you. We have a really interesting topic tonight, and it's looked at in many, many different ways, so it should be a really interesting discussion. We got to have our announcements and get them going here, but so make sure that you help yourself to the popcorn and drinks here throughout the evening. They're there for you. And we encourage you to sign our big red book in the back with your email and phone number. And this helps us keep you up on the many happenings that's going on with the Patriot Roundtable. With our legislative session going on right now, if you want to follow any of the bills or happenings in the House or Senate, go to leg.mt.gov. You can watch committee meetings live, plus the live House and Senate floor sessions. So that's really a good thing to do here. We have the new Liberty Bell newspapers tonight, and they're on the table. Plus, we've got more in the back. Please feel free to take as many as you want and pass around or put in places where they will let you set papers out. They are just full of great information. Helps keep us up to date on what's happening in Montana in the political world. Many times we get a behind-the-scenes look at pertinent issues that are going on. And then we remind you of our donation basket in the back entry table. Again, your financial help supports us put these programs on. We spend approximately $350 to $450 each month to bring these events and speakers to you, and our dollars are getting low. So we need to try to at least break even on Sundays, and we've not been doing that. So we appreciate your dedication to our mission, and you guys are what makes this happen. Right now, we're looking for 10 people who will make a $50 or more 6-month commitment with us that we can count on each month to help us financially keep moving ahead. We're also sending an SOS out to our live audience. Since we started the live feeds, we don't have near the in-house audience because everybody's staying at home and kicking their feet up and having a good time. And so we appreciate this because many in our area who are not able to listen to it or to be here can listen to it. We have some awesome speakers and want to continue this service. So we need your financial participation, live audience here, or that might be something that'll have to be scrapped. We would love to have you become a partner with us in this manner. Remember, every month we have this crowd here, plus the 1,000 to 3,000 people that watch us every month. So the outreach that the Lord has given us is amazing. Our next month meeting will be Sunday, May 4th at 5 here at the VFW, and we're going to have the state chapter of Americans for Prosperity come to talk with us. They're an organization of grassroots leaders who encourage limited governments and free markets on local, state, and federal levels. They champion the principles of entrepreneurship and fiscal responsibility. If you're in Helena, you can see them every day testifying for these rights for us. So Sunday, May 4th is that date. Now, something super, super exciting that's happening to us on June 7th. This is a save the date kind of a deal. We've been asked to host Gordon Chang, a national figure that's on a lot of the stations. If you'll take your paper, right back here is the big ad. And they came to us to see if we would sponsor him in. He's a national figure. He's written books, and he's a worldwide expert on the Chinese Communist Party. He's written 3 books, and the one right now out is called Plan Red, China's Project to Destroy America. He's going to have these books available that evening and sign them and all that kind of good stuff. He's been on every major news network, and he writes for The Hill and Newsmax. It's exciting to have a national figure like this brought into Miles City, so we're we're excited to host it. It's a big deal, so keep on watching us, and we're going to have fundraisers and all that kind of big thing. We want to show Mr. Chang what Eastern Montana is all about, so help us come get this handled here. To get us started this evening, we're pleased to have Mike Etchemendy. He's a local pharmacist and a business owner. And he's going to quickly tell us about House Bill 740 that's going on right now. It just kind of came about, and so we shoved him in here really quick so that he can let us know what's going on. Something happening tomorrow morning. So Mike, you go ahead and let everybody know.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay. So House Bill 740, it's kind of a complicated bill, but basically what it does is it's going to rein in an entity called a PBM, which is a prescription benefit management company. The PBM is the middleman that you have to pay for your prescription drugs. And what we're trying to do is, the way that they pay pharmacies, and actually they use this also to kind of hide their true costs to whoever they're working for, like if it's a self-insured or an insurance company. But they use a system that uses the average wholesale price, which is it's a nebulous number. It doesn't really mean anything, and it's very easily manipulated. What this bill would do would use a term called NADAC, which is an acronym for the actual acquisition cost of a pharmacy, figuring in all of our rebates and everything, just the national average. So it's a solid number. And I think what this bill is scaring the PBMs, or the prescription benefit management companies, is this is going to take away their business model. They can hide a lot of costs by just manipulating the price, and they're the ones that receive all the profit. So the HB 740 passed through the House, I think it was 99-1. But what the PBMs have done is they've scared all of the labor unions, employers, that this is going to increase the price. The new proposed pricing is going to be this actual cost plus a $15 dispensing fee. The national average for a pharmacy to stay in business is $13 a prescription is what we need to make in order just to keep the doors open. The way it's been going with the way they've been manipulating these prices is the average price that we're seeing is about $8 a prescription is what we're getting paid. And the problem with this is that we're going to have pharmacy deserts in Montana if this doesn't pass. One of my associates who owns several pharmacies in Montana, he had a pharmacy here in Eastern Montana. I don't want to disclose the town, and he didn't want me to either, because he doesn't want to scare the people of that town. But they're the only pharmacy in that town. 2 years ago, their total profits were about $80,000 after they paid everybody. Last year, it went down to $5,000. 2022 it was 75. Then it went down to 5, and then last year they lost 35,000. So they're concerned. They do not want to close this pharmacy, but it's getting to that point. They've got another pharmacy in Deer Lodge that they did have to shut down last year. I think it was the only one in Deer Lodge too. But in the first 7 months, they had lost 175,000. And it's all because of these PBMs. I guess what I'm asking is, and Joe Billhauer got everything over there, but it's in the Judiciary Committee. I would ask anybody that wants to is get that list. Email them all that you're in support of HB 740. I think the vote's going to come out tomorrow. So we would really appreciate any help in this matter. So I guess if anybody has any questions, is that?
Okay, we'll do some questions
Okay.
afterwards, but yeah. Okay, so that's really good information for us for tonight when we get home. Maybe look it up on your computer and check it out a little bit more. But we've got all the information with emails and numbers back there to get a hold of all of our representatives to encourage them to vote the way we need them voted.
Do you think you should have people ask questions for him right now?
Okay, well,
Starting
we
this?
need to get rolling here really
Okay.
quick, so, okay. All right, so I'm gonna get into the program because Mike's gonna be here, so we can ask him some of those questions a little bit later. But this past year, with the help of a ton of high-paid out-of-staters asking for our signatures, Montana voted to allow recreational marijuana for those of legal age. Medical marijuana was already here, and we realized many questions out there were not getting completely answered, or there was a lot of misinformation that was going around. For the past 30 plus days, with some local issues being addressed, this has been a hot issue here in town. Our title tonight was Let's Discuss This, Tackling Current Issues and Questions Related to the Marijuana Issue. We've heard good approving words coming our way, and we've also heard some very harsh, disapproving, emotional words. Many are totally against this, while others are all for it. But the majority seem to be in the middle with the opinion of, it's really no big deal. So tonight, that's exactly what we're gonna be doing, discussing some of the issues concerning this topic, and we hope to do it in a fair and balanced manner. We have 5 locals who have worked in or dealt with these issues throughout the past couple of years. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce you to our whole panel here tonight, and we'll get started. Barney Murnion was part of the Miles City Police Department and worked several years as a specialized school resource officer. He's going to give us some insight on how law enforcement is affected on this issue and what he himself has personally seen. Vicki Leesburg in the middle is a mom and a local business owner who just became concerned and decided to get involved. She will update us all on what's happened locally so far with some zoning issues and ordinances. Jeff Fakosh is a local Custer County Commissioner and had worked in his previous professional life as a supervisor with the Drug Task Force here in eastern Montana. He's going to address that elusive 3% tax income for Miles City and Custer County that we were told was going to make us rich. So he's going to talk about that a little bit. Z. Crocker on the end there is from the Sweetgrass Dispensary, and she's going to give us an idea on what they offer the community as a business here in town. And Mike Etchemendy is going to kick in here and address some of the THC issues with the cannabis plant. And as I understand, this is a primary proactive compound in the plant, and it has increased throughout the years from the 3% in the 1980s, the old Cheech and Chong days there, to over 15% today. And some strains even have an average of going to 30-35%, so your insight's going to be enlightening on this. We're going to start our panel this evening with Barney, and he's kindly accepted our invitation tonight as he already had a family function scheduled. So he's going to have to leave after he speaks, but we wanted to make sure that we acknowledge and thank him for his insight that he's going to give us on this issue tonight. Help me welcome our panel, and we will get started with Barney. Okay.
Well, good evening. Sounds like you're going to be able to hear me with that, too. Yeah, as Mary mentioned, we have every other Sunday night is our family dinner night. I have 16 grandchildren. Only 6 of them are in town, but this is my chance to see those 6 grandchildren on a regular basis. So I'm going to duck out if you're be home time for supper with them. But Mary mentioned I was with the Miles City Police Department for 13 years. I actually hired on in 2003, took an early retirement in 2016. So I'm already 8 years removed from law enforcement. And there's been a lot that's changed in the 8 years since I've taken retirement. So I'm not sure I can address a lot of current law enforcement concerns in regards to this specific topic. But I can certainly share some of my history from back when recreational marijuana was not legal in the state of Montana, and concerns and issues we were dealing with way back then with teenagers specifically. But yeah, I hired on in 2003. It was actually 2004 when medical marijuana was voted in as a legal substance in the state of Montana. And I was a pretty new officer. I wouldn't say young because I was not that young when I became an officer. But I remember at that point, because now, prior to that, no marijuana was legal, and all of a sudden, we have a substance that is now legal for a certain portion of the population. But as a newer officer, I remember responding to calls with more experienced officers where we might go into residence and see all of this marijuana paraphernalia in the residence, and then all of a sudden find out, oh, they have a medical marijuana card. So we were having to adjust on the way we would respond to such a situation. Whereas prior to that, we probably would have secured the facility and obtained a search warrant to determine if there was grounds for a felony charge. Instead, we actually called the local task force team to come in and help us make sure they were abiding by the regulations of their medical marijuana permit. So there was definitely a challenge in law enforcement, even when the medical marijuana became legal. But most of my experience with Miles City Police Department was as the school resource officer, and I spent 7 of my 13 years working in the public schools here. I actually had a predecessor, a school resource officer ahead of me, who had developed some alcohol awareness, underage drinking awareness, drug abuse awareness programs that he had established, and he actually provided me with some really amazing PowerPoint presentations to do at the 7th and 8th grade levels at that time. At that time, he felt a real need to focus on underage drinking and alcohol abuse with the 7th graders. And with the 8th graders, he wanted to really focus on methamphetamine and other more serious, dangerous drugs. And that was what he had established as his protocol for trying to address these concerns. Shortly after I took over, I became aware of some national programs that were actually starting with much younger age students. There was a national program available focusing on 5th and 6th grade students for alcohol awareness, because it was becoming known that we need to address this sooner in these children's lives, because by the time they get to junior high, it's too late. So we were trying to address those things and changing, and eventually, actually it was shortly after I became the school resource officer that I put a national Red Ribbon Week, where nationally there was a program for drug awareness and substance abuse issues all the way down to kindergarten. So before I was done, I was doing presentations with kindergartners, trying to inform them of the dangers of substance abuse. I remember my first Red Ribbon Week going into a 3rd grade class and having a little boy say, "My dad uses drugs." I didn't know how to respond to that at that point. So that was quite a few years ago, but that was the reality then. I guess one of my other responsibilities as a school resource officer was dealing with truancy issues. State of Montana, compulsory attendance is until you're 16 years of age, and after that, a 16-year-old can decide whether they want to continue their education or not. But during my career, I dealt with many 13, 14, and 15-year-olds who didn't want to be in school, and I don't have any statistics on what kind of percentage, but I would say a pretty high percentage of those students were using marijuana at 13, 14, and 15 years ago. And that was back when the only legal marijuana in Montana was medicinal. I do personally believe that when medical marijuana became legal in the state of Montana, the availability to those who were not supposed to be using it legally, it increased at that point. So at this point, as now the voters of the state of Montana have decided that we should legalize recreational marijuana, the access to our young people, I can only expect will have increased already. as I mentioned, the school resource officer, I did really focus on underage drinking presentations in 7th grade, and we really continue to really try to address the potential for methamphetamine use and other more serious drugs. In 8th grade, just want to share one of the most heartbreaking things that happened as a police officer was years after I had started doing these presentations, when some of the kids that had been 12, 13, 14 years old in 7th and 8th grade that I knew sat in my classes, and later in my career when I was working summertime and I was helping investigate some 18, 19-year-olds who had become methamphetamine addicts that I knew sat in my classes in 7th and 8th grade. At least 2 of those individuals I suspected were smoking marijuana when they were in junior high, and had pretty good reason to suspect that. Actually, one of them specifically admitted to the officer who had arrested him as an 18 or 19-year-old that, oh yeah, I was smoking marijuana all through high school, but now I'm addicted to methamphetamine. But I knew that he had sat in the 7th or 8th grade health class and listened to my presentation, trying to inform them of the dangers of those things. But again, I'm quite removed from the reality of what law enforcement is having to address today with now recreational marijuana being available. I remember one DUI investigation that I was involved in during the summertime when I wasn't in the school. Had an individual who was under the influence of alcohol, was actually what seemed almost like he might be borderline on whether his alcohol concentration was high enough to charge him, except that his motor skills were hindered enough that I required to submit to a blood test because he wouldn't submit to a breath test. His results came back from the state lab having a combination of alcohol and marijuana. Well, try to make a long story short, he had delayed the process of getting his blood test done long enough that his alcohol concentration would have been lower, and actually the science won't let you do it that way from my memory of the science that we had to abide by. But for all intents and purposes, his alcohol concentration probably was higher when he was driving than what his blood sample showed 2 hours later at the hospital, because he managed to delay things enough to make it that. But the blood test came back with marijuana on board also, and we had to seek the expert witness advice of a person from the state crime lab to testify in that case to verify that yes, that level of alcohol and the level of THC in his system would substantiate being impaired beyond what he should be to be driving a motor vehicle in the state of Montana. Now that was years ago. I'm not sure where the laws are in regards to their ability to enforce and determine at what level of THC level is sufficient or for impairment to be driving. But I can only imagine that it's a difficult situation for law enforcement to be facing, and an additional substance to have to deal with and enforce. Apparently we have a question back there.
I was just going to say it's 5 nanograms per milliliter of blood is intoxicating in Montana.
Okay, and that sounds familiar. 8 years removed, they probably had that established because there was medical marijuana legal at that time, and they had to have something established for that reason.
I'm a defense attorney. I do a lot of DUIs. It's 5 nanograms.
A great man to have here. I probably exceeded my 10 minutes already, so yeah, as a grandparent of 6 kids that are going to be going through the school system in Miles City, Montana, former law enforcement officer, I think the biggest question we're faced with right now in Custer County, Miles City, is where are we going to actually allow dispensaries? I think that's still the only real unanswered question, if I understand things correctly. I would have big concerns that if there are dispensaries allowed in places where students are, there's high pedestrian traffic for students coming and going for school or for any other reason, that if there were dispensaries allowed in those locations, the visibility of that and the access to our juveniles, I'd have serious concerns about where they're allowed to be. The more readily available any substance is going to alter their mental capacities. Certainly concerning, and something that society is going to have to figure out how we're going to deal with.
Does anybody have a quick question or two for him before he takes off? All righty. Okay. Oh,
I just have one. Marijuana's legal in Montana, but it's still illegal federally, right?
That is my understanding.
all righty. Well, happy eating, Barney. Thank you so much for coming tonight and doing this for us. So appreciate it a lot here. We're going to have
Thank you.
Vicki speak next. And she's going to talk about the zoning and the ordinances that we kind of deal with here in town right now. So I will give the mic to her.
Okay, hi there. Didn't expect to get stuck on stage and in the middle. So what we know is on December 31st, in order to prepare Custer County for marijuana, they had to make an emergency but temporary ordinance, and that's ordinance 1388. And 1388 was basically set in place to follow most of the rules, or all of the rules, that the medical marijuana had to currently abide by in order to be allowed in the county. And so that one basically provides a lot of the same safe conditions that were worked on really hard by a group several years ago when it first came into town. In January, the zoning board then had to start discussions with the city on where to allow it. And so then the next draft ordinance was created as 1391. And now the zoning board, there's 4 individuals, I think they've added a 5th. I can't imagine that would be an easy job. So, because there's a lot of different opinions. And so the zoning board meetings were public, and they had to deal with a lot of us who came in asking questions. Please explain what this ordinance is about and what it means and so forth. And so we were at 2 zoning board meetings, I think, before we realized that at the very end of the meeting, we don't really have to allow medical or marijuana in the city limits of Miles City. If the vote was that it had to be allowed within Custer County. So technically, just being in Custer County is fine. We didn't have to allow it into the city. Now, I think the city was a little bit nervous, and they've already had, as soon as it got passed, people were already asking, where can they put a shop, where can they expand, or whatever. I don't know anything about what was really going on. But of course, there's 1,000 rumors, and everybody hears everything. And everybody knows everything, and somebody's an expert. So we just went to the zoning board meetings to try to figure out what was actually going to be allowed. And so the reason we left a couple of those zoning board meetings thinking we'd had it under control, and we knew where it was going to be under control. But when we then read the next draft ordinance, or draft of the ordinance, we realized that some of the things that we had hoped were going to be safeguarded to protect our children, we kept talking about, keeping it 1,000 feet away from hospitals and parks and schools and daycares and playgrounds and so forth. And some of the language didn't get put into 1391. Now, we don't know if that was the fault of the people who were in the audience asking questions, because there's a lot of people at these meetings and there's a lot of questions flying around, and I know that the people who are trying to write the zone or the ordinance are trying to take into everybody's considerations, and there's always a lot of discussion. So when we left with whether the board was going to sit submit their motion to the city council to be voted on, that's basically when a lot more people showed up at the meetings. And it was simply because after we read the draft, we realized that there was still a lot of holes and a lot of things that weren't in there to protect our kids. We have a lot of at-risk populations in this town. If you talk to the school board and the superintendent, they really have a lot to say about the kids that are at risk in this community. And so we really need to work very hard at making sure that we are the maximum distance we can be from any place where our kids are. And I think we were very surprised at the number of people that were opponents to Ordinance 1391. And I think everybody who had something to say and was very well spoken on that night at the city council meeting. And so the city council did end up voting down Ordinance 1391. And so now, because 1388 is only a temporary, and we have a temporary stay of that one until the end of June, now we have to basically write a new ordinance. But we hope to be a lot more involved now that we have a lot more information, and there's a lot of people that are really going to try to work with the city on this. And the one thing that the mayor kept telling us was, this is your government. You have to be here, and you have to let us hear you. So get here and make your opinion known, and bring your information. Don't just show up with opinion and conjecture. Show up with actual facts, information, and that's what we did. We kept looking for facts and things to support our arguments to protect our kids. One of the things we realized is that because we don't have to allow it in the city, we went looking for other people who don't allow it in the city. Well, it's legal in Glendive, and it's legal in Dawson County, and Glendive doesn't allow it in their city limits either.
No.
And Sydney, which county is Sydney? Richland. Okay, Richland. Sorry, I'm not native. Richland County also does not allow marijuana in the city limits, and so Sydney doesn't have any pot shops in the city limits as well. So we realized that if they can do it, we can also do it. So that's really what we're just trying to find, is make sure is that we keep the marijuana in the county, so that Jeff and company here can protect our kids to the best of their abilities, with a lot of opinions, I'm sure. But I have had former employees who were recreational users. They didn't bring it to work, it was fine, we never had a problem. But because I had to know, I said, where do you want your pot shops? And they're like, oh my gosh, as far away from the kids in town as possible. It shouldn't be anywhere. I really got involved because I wanted to make sure that it didn't hit Main Street, it didn't come downtown, and it wasn't too close to our two historical districts. One of the things that we keep coming back to is, in the various meetings we've been to, is that people are saying, well, why can't, we've got bars and casinos everywhere. I wasn't here when the bars and casinos got their license and rules to go wherever they wanted. And I'm sorry, but we have to decide to be a part of the solution and not part of the problem. So I think the biggest thing is for people to understand that we don't want our kids to have to fix our problems. So if we create a problem for them, and it doesn't look like a problem now, but it could very well turn into a problem because we've seen it, we just need to protect our kids. So we're here trying to stand up for our kids and our families and making sure that our children do not have to fix any of the things that we created for them. We don't want them to fix a mess that is out of their hands and not their responsibility to have to fix. I missed anything?
Is that good?
I think so.
All righty, thank you. I forgot to let you guys know that there's cards on your table, and if you have a question as these guys are talking, jot them down on the card, and we can ask those at the end here, or we'll have live questions also. So just get them down on some paper here so you don't forget about them here. The next panel that we're going to have is Jeff, our county commissioner here, and I'd like for him to address some of his drug task force stuff, but also the 3% tax is supposed to be coming to to Custer, and then the city of Miles City was the huge thing that was just very hard for people to understand. So we're going to let you explain that to us here. Okay.
Okay, so I'll start at the beginning. In 1978, when I became a law enforcement officer, and I retired in 2019. So I served 41 years, over 30 years in narcotics, drug enforcement, 10 years undercover, and 17 as a supervisor in Miles City. An investigator with the Attorney General's office stationed here in Miles City. We covered the eastern part of the state in all kinds of dangerous drug violations, marijuana grows, methamphetamine labs, sales and distribution. So that's my background on that. So I retired in 2019. I ran for county commissioner in 2022, and 2 years and a couple months into my first term. So I'm dealing with marijuana issues now from a different angle. So when marijuana became legal in Montana, each county had the opportunity to allow recreational sales or not. Custer County was what they called a red county. They voted against having recreational sales of marijuana in Custer County. Ever since I became county commissioner, been approached several times for the commission to sign a resolution, which we could do, to put that on the ballot. All of us were in agreement that the citizens had voted no, that they did not want it in there, a recreational sale in Custer County. So we would not do it by resolution. We said, if you want to put it on the ballot, you have to get a petition together and have enough signatures to put it on the ballot. So that's why we never put it on a resolution and bypassed what people voted on the first time. We assumed and still do that the people of Custer County did not want sales of recreational marijuana in Custer County. So until there was a petition signed by enough people, electors in Custer County, it wasn't going to be on the ballot, at least from our standpoint. So, as you all know, there was enough votes to get it on the ballot, and it passed. So now there's recreational sales of marijuana in Custer County. The 3% option tax went into effect April 1st. So as of April 1st, medical marijuana and recreational marijuana will be taxed at 3%, an additional 3% over what they're already being taxed. Every quarter, that will be distributed back to the county, and the county will keep 50% of that. The state will keep 5%, and the municipalities in the county will split the 45% based on the population. So one of the questions I had on the deal was, is ISMA going to get any? They will get money based on their population, so it won't be very much. So how much money are we going to see out of this? We've said, or I've said from the beginning, you're not going to see as much as everybody hopes you're going to see. I would be surprised to see $35,000 to $40,000 on the county side, which would be less than that to see. It's not going to solve any problems. There's not going to be a huge windfall. I may be wrong. I've been wrong before. I can't remember when that was, but I'm sure it was. So, I don't see it being a big, huge windfall, but people voted for it, and that's what it is. So all the recreational and medical sales are all enforced by the state. They do the inspections, they do all the quality control. Local law enforcement, local governments don't have any oversight over that other than the zoning locations where the businesses are at. So we have 2 dispensaries in the county, in the area. They've been here forever. Most people only know of the one because it's easily seen. The other one probably not seen as much, and you have nowhere to look to find it. But they've been operating here for 5-6 years that I know of, probably even longer than that. And before there were other dispensaries here. So all of them in the county, as far as I know. There was one in the city at one time, right off North Montana. That was short-lived. It didn't last very long. What I saw when I was in law enforcement was totally different because I've been out of it 6 years. Things evolved tremendously in the last 6 years. I will tell you that since I was in there from the 70s on, I got to see an evolution of how marijuana changed a lot. I talked earlier about the THC levels of the marijuana going from 3% on up to double digits, depending on who you talk to. So I gave a ton of talks, drug talks to families, businesses, community groups on methamphetamine and marijuana all the time. And I'm a firm believer that marijuana, cannabis, has a medical purpose. The cannabinoids in marijuana have medical benefits. The THC has no medical benefits. And I called, it was a scam from the get-go that they had this high THC content for medicine. It numbs you, but it didn't cure anything. The cannabinoids is what was the beneficial part of that. So I've never agreed with medical and recreational. It was all to get marijuana in the forefront, lowers people's desire to do away with it and make it more palatable to people because now it's medicine. So that was the first inroads. And now the toothpaste is out of the tube and you're not going to put it back. Society will probably never illegalize marijuana ever again. It's probably going to be legal on a federal level here, I'm sure, within the next decade, easily. I would say in the next few years. So, did I see a lot of problems with families with marijuana? Tons. When I was working undercover, I was given kids that I did not know to babysit while their parents went and got the weed for me to buy from them. A total stranger walked in their house. I did the same thing with marijuana distributors. I mean, they were one and the same. When they were selling drugs, illicit drugs, there was always a problem. Once it became legalized, we didn't mess with it anymore because people didn't want us to. So we weren't going to waste tax dollars on something that was already illegal. I was given a talk to a local state organization here, drug talk about marijuana grows, because we were getting inundated with a ton of marijuana grows back during that time period. Didn't think nothing about it, and a couple months later this guy calls me and he says, I was in your presentation that you gave and you were talking about marijuana grows. I said, yeah. And he says, it's legal now for medicinal marijuana to be grown. Of course. And he goes, I have stage 4 cancer. I said, colon cancer. He says, very painful. I cannot find a supplier for marijuana, and I'm trying to grow some marijuana, but I'm having some trouble. He says, can you give me any advice on how to grow marijuana? And I said, well, I never thought I'd see this day, but yeah, I'll come over and look at your growing and give you some tips on venting it and whatnot. And I did. I showed him what he was doing wrong. And I don't know whether he got a crop out before he died or not, but it was kind of a weird transition. It's the way it goes. So times change.
All right, thank you so much, Jeff. We've gotten a lot of different perspectives on this, haven't we, already? Now, we're going to jump to the far side, other side here, and get a whole different type of look to it here. This is Z. Crocker, and she works out at the Sweetgrass Dispensary, and she's going to let us know what she's got to offer to town. So thank you, Dee. Go ahead.
Hi everyone, I'm Z. I've been with Bloom, which is my parent company, for 4 years now.
Grab that mic. Is that mic turned off? Okay.
I'm the store director of Sweetgrass here in town. I've grown a passion for this industry, and I'm excited today to educate you all about the cannabis. Some facts about me are I grew up in Texas. I moved to Montana when I was in high school. I have 2 cats, Bella and Cotton, who's sitting in the right corner. I've worked at Gallagher's for the past 5 years. I recognize a bunch of you guys from there. So I'm just going to talk about THC and its percentages, because it's been mentioned here today that it's changed a lot over the years. So THC is the main compound in cannabis that causes the high feeling. The amount of THC can differ a lot depending on the type of plant, how it's grown, and how it's processed. Cannabis is usually grouped by how much THC it has. Low could be under 15%, medium 20 to 25%, and high over 30%. People often choose high THC types for stronger effects, while low THC types are favored for mild effects or medical benefits without getting too high. The mix of THC with other compounds like CBD can change the overall effect and benefits. Knowing these levels helps people choose the right product for fun or health reasons. Edibles are also a popular form of consuming cannabis, offering a discreet and often more potent alternative to smoking or vaping. They come in various forms such as gummies, chocolates, cookies, and beverages, each infused with specific amounts of THC. The potency of edibles is measured in milligrams of THC. Common doses can range from 2.5 milligrams to 5 milligrams per serving for beginners, while more experienced users might opt for higher doses like 20 milligrams or more. It's crucial to start with a low dose, especially for first-timers, and wait at least 1 to 2 hours to assess the effects before consuming more, as the onset effect of edibles can be delayed. Understanding and managing the dosage is key to ensuring a safe and enjoyable experience. Our bud tenders at Sweetgrass are a great source of information to help find what would be best for you. These are just the Montana laws that they have regulating the THC percentages. Montana has specific laws regulating THC levels. As of the latest updates, Montana allows the recreational use of marijuana for adults aged 21 and over. The state has set limits on the THC concentration in cannabis products to ensure safety and compliance. For instance, flower products are typically capped at a THC content of 35%, while edibles have a limit of 110 milligrams of THC per package, with an individual servings not exceeding 11 milligrams. These regulations are designed to prevent overconsumption and ensure that products are used responsibly. It's crucial for consumers and businesses to stay informed about these laws to avoid legal issues and promote safe usage. Make sure to check your local Sweetgrass, as laws can evolve often. I know they talked about the local option for the tax, but this goes a little bit more in depth of the tax distribution on the state level. The 20% adult use cannabis tax is the recreational part of it, and the 4% medical marijuana tax distribution is as follows. So $6 million of it to the healing and ending addiction through recovery and treatment. The remainder of it goes 20% to the Department of Fish and Wildlife Parks, 4% to the state parks, 4% to the trails and recreational facilities, 4% to non-game wildlife, 3% or $200,000, whichever is less, to the Veterans and Surviving Spouse State Special Revenue Account, $150,000 to the Board of Crime Control to fund crisis intervention team training, $300,000 to the Department of Justice to administer and grant funding to local and state law enforcement agencies, the remainder to the general fund. Medical versus recreational marijuana. Recreational and medical marijuana differ primarily in their intended use. Recreational marijuana is used for personal enjoyment rather than for health benefits. Users typically seek the psychoactive effects from the compound THC, which can produce a high. In contrast, medical marijuana is prescribed or recommended by healthcare professionals to treat specific medical conditions, such as chronic pain, epilepsy, arthritis, and much more. A lot believe that we have different products we sell to our medical customers, which isn't necessarily true. My company regulates all of our products to be sold to everyone. Although there are some dispensaries in Montana that carry medical-only products, Sweetgrass is not one of them. These are just some different cannabinoids from cannabis that can be helpful for medical use. You can buy these recreationally. You don't have to have a medical card to purchase them. And they are really good for a lot of different things. CBD, I'm sure a lot of people have heard of CBD, is a compound from the cannabis plant. Unlike THC, it doesn't cause a high. People use CBD for its potential health benefits, like reducing anxiety, easing pain, and helping with sleep. The next one I have is CBG. CBG is also a non-psychoactive cannabinoid found in the cannabis plant. CBG has gained attention for its potential therapeutic benefits, which may include anti-inflammatory, antibacterial, and neuroprotective properties. CBN is the last one I'm going to cover today, and CBN is derived from the breakdown of THC over time. It is being studied for its potential therapeutic effects, including its use as sleep aid and its possible anti-inflammatory properties. This is one of the gummies that we carry at my shop. As you can see right here, it shows it only has 1 milligram of THC, so this product is not going to get you high at all. It's specifically to help with anxiety. If you know somebody that has panic attacks, anxiety, anything like that, these are really helpful. They hit within 5 to 15 minutes, so they're a quick onset. And they're paired with some of those cannabinoids I was talking about CBG, CBD, and other stuff like that. This is another one of the gummies that we carry at my shop. They are to help you fall asleep. This is also another low milligram option that we have, so this is not going to get you high at all. As you can see, I know everybody probably knows what melatonin is. It has melatonin in it, so that's going to help get you to sleep. It's got THC, the CBG, and the CBN and CBD. It's going to help you relieve pain and just kind of feel sleepy before you get to bed. And this one is pretty similar, except this is going to keep you to sleep. These are concentrates or dabs, wax. There's a bunch of different names for them. They come in different kinds of consistencies. There's different extraction methods. This is going to be more of a stronger form of cannabis. They extract it and make it, they can be up to 99% THC on these. At my store, we carry over 40 strains to choose from, ranging from 19% to 35%. So you really have something for everyone. You can buy it in loose flower, you can buy it in pre-rolled joints. We have infused joints if you're looking for something a little bit stronger. Just depends on what you're looking for. These are some of our infused joints that we have in my shop. It's very potent if you're looking for something like that. And then vapes. We carry numerous different kinds of vapes in my store. It's more of a discreet way for people to get some relief. If you're out and about and you don't really want to smell like marijuana, then just take a hit of this and you'll be good to go. And that's all I really have for today. Thank you guys for having me.
Okay, Mike, we're going to let you finish up and close the discussion here. Do you have anything more to inform us on the THC?
You know, I really don't. There was a question, though, about the THC or the marijuana of the scheduling federally. It is considered a C1 schedule. A pharmacy can't have a C1 schedule. The highest we can have is a C2. C2 would be like cocaine, fentanyl. C3 would be Tylenol 3, that sort of stuff. I have read in some of my journals where federally they're looking at moving marijuana from a C1 to a C3. I don't know what that'll do with all the marijuana laws in every state because, I mean, we're basically just, you know, we're not looking at federal law anymore anyway, which is kind of weird to me, but it is what it is. Another thing I'd like to add to this, just from a pharmacist standpoint, the CBD is what does a lot of the medical aspects of everything. However, the THC is needed to soup it up. It's like it's going to turbocharge the CBD. Or, gosh, I think you mentioned, what, 3 cannabinoids beside that? So I believe there's over 160 different cannabinoids in a marijuana plant. And we have no idea what most of them do. So it's right now we're just in the research stage on a lot of this. But because it was a C1 can't be studied. And that's one of the reasons why the feds want to move it to at least a C2 or a C3, so that there can be studies run on it. So.
Mike, can you tell us what the classification of those is based on?
I wish I had a definition right in front of me. It comes down to whether they've got a medical use and they're not abusive. So, and I don't know why they determined marijuana to have no medical use, because it's obvious it does. It works on epilepsy, it works on, MS, spasticity, that's a tough word to say. It works on nausea. It works on wasting. You know, they'll give it to AIDS patients who are wasting away. It increases your appetite. There's a lot of medical uses for it. So.
Okay, do we have any other questions out in the audience? We'll bring the microphone to you if you've got a question on a card, raise your hand and we'll come grab it here. Okay.
I've got one question here, Mary. Are there any tests that officers can run for drug impairment, like similar to a breathalyzer?
They could do a gaze nystagmus test to indicate what sort of, whether they have a stimulant or alcohol on board. There is a mouth swab, or was a mouth swab for THC. I don't know if it's just it may not be admissible. Of course, probably what do you want to call it, Mike? It's like a PBT test. It's
right. It can be used to develop probable cause,
right,
but
but
it
it can't
cannot
be used
individually be used in court.
right. So typically they use blood test, as far as I know. And like I said, I've been out at 6 years. I have no idea what's going on with that now.
Okay. Would it be legal for a county to outlaw marijuana gummies and candy just because they're making their way into grade schools and high schools? Is that something you guys can answer, or do we need Mike on that? Mike, we should have had you up front.
I don't really know the answer to that. My guess would be actually probably not.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
And I'm sorry, for you, I'm in Z. I'm sorry. As far as I'm on the 16th Judicial District, which is the Custer County Treatment Court. And I've been to the treatment court training a number of times. One of the things that they said in the training was that the CBD oils all had a greater or lesser amount of THC in them. And a number of them that they tested at independent labs actually had enough THC in them to make you high, even though it said on the bottle it did not have THC. Could you comment on that?
So yes, a lot of the CBD products, most of the CBD products that we carry the THC, but some that have such a low milligram, just the 1 milligram, and a higher milligram of CBD, it really counteracts that, so you won't get high off of it. But we don't really carry any products that don't have any THC in them. Did that answer your question?
It does.
Okay.
I have another question here. Will the city marijuana tax revenue go to the Parks and Rec Department? That's what was told to everyone signing the petition.
We don't have anybody from the city here to answer that.
Okay, I don't have any other things.
I've got a couple more here. Mike, what does HB 740 actually do? Does it like regulate pricing?
It would actually change, yes, it does, regulates pricing. It would change the pricing structure, yeah, from an average wholesale price to the actual acquisition cost. So yeah, it would. And there's another practice that the PBMs do called spread pricing. Basically what they do with the spread pricing is the PBM will say that the pharmacy was paid $70, just an example. And in reality, we got paid $50. And that spread the PBM keeps, even though they represent it as that was the cost of the drug. So it would eliminate spread pricing.
Another question for you, Mike. If marijuana was moved to a class 3 drug like you stated, would that be available at pharmacies? then, potentially?
Yeah, your guess is as good as mine. I would guess so. I don't know how I couldn't carry it. Like, for right now, because I have a license with the DEA and it's a C1, there's no way that a pharmacy could carry it. But if it was a C3, I don't know why I couldn't. But that's, yeah, it's going to be a mess if that happens.
And I've got one final question, and I don't even know who to direct this to, but is there a grow house in Custer County?
No, they did not.
Okay. So I personally made a phone call to the Department of Revenue and asked how they monitor dispensaries. And I might not have the right terminology, but she spoke about from seed to something tracking in some kind of a software system.
Yeah, so it's a seed to sale tracking system. And so that pretty much just means from the point that it is a seed to the point that it is sold out the door, everything's tracked and regulated. So all of our products are tested, regulated to be able to sold to the public. Nothing is being sold that isn't already tested. And then we also have yearly inspections where the state comes down with an inspector, and then they inspect our stores to make sure that we're all up to code on their laws.
Okay, and just a question because I'm very not knowledgeable. So when you talk about from seed to sale, if you don't grow in your business, then how is that all?
So my business does have a grow, it's just in Helena.
Oh,
And
okay.
then they drive it to us essentially.
Oh, okay.
But it's still tracked no matter what. They will have like a special tag, and it's from the moment that it is put in the soil to the moment that it's grown, it has that tag, and then after it's gone, that tag gets destroyed.
Thank you.
Yes, Jeff, you gave some percentages of the tax, and can you be more specific or reiterate it again? I didn't catch it all, where it went.
Okay, the sales tax, the optional sales tax, the 3% that we will receive from the state, it's added onto the sales of medical and recreational sales now, as of April 1st. It goes to the state. The state keeps 5%, the county gets 50%, and then the municipalities within the county get the other 45% based on their population.
Other municipalities.
Ismay and Miles City are the only two municipalities in Custer County.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So Jeff, another question. So then that tax came into effect as of April 1st. So will you receive those funds quarterly or annually?
We will receive them the quarter after they're collected. The first payment that we'll see, to have any idea how much money this is going to bring in, will be issued on September 15th. That's the distribution date. So come in a quarter after the sales.
Do you know anything about the setbacks in the county?
The setbacks for the zoning?
Yeah.
No, there is no setbacks in the county. The county allows the distribution of marijuana in commercial and industrial zone property. Those have already they're already set aside back from residential.
So, if there was a house next to a building, or residence next to a building that wanted to rent out to another shop, is that?
If there's a house there, it's probably not zoned commercial.
Okay, so it's gotta be zoned commercial.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Any other questions or comments, Stephen? Okay.
I'm not sure if this is helpful, but I think I have some unique experiences with being from Lincoln and Great Falls, and how that has grown and the negative side effects of that. I wanted to share that. I don't know if that would be appropriate to share that here.
Okay, the negative side effects of it.
Oh, yeah, not. Well, anyway, I'll keep this short. We've been here long enough tonight. I don't want to keep you more than necessary. But I'm originally, my name is Willie Thornley. I just moved up here from to Miles City about 6 months ago, and I grew up in Lincoln. I don't know if you know where Lincoln is, but it's about exactly in the middle between Great Falls and Missoula, right in the base of the Rocky Mountains. Small little town. And at one time, we had the highest divorce rate, the highest alcoholic rate per capita in the United States. So that's kind of my claim to fame, unfortunately. We got drunk and high all the time. Everybody did. That's just what we did. And I got out of that. That wasn't my thing. Then I moved when I got 19, moved to Great Falls. And this was the mid-'80s when I was doing this, mid to late 80s when I was a teenager. And moved to Great Falls. And recently, of course, they legalized it there in the city limits in Great Falls. And I voted for this because I believe in free choice, and all that. I'm a pretty conservative guy. Don't like messing with other people, so I'm not hurting anyone else. Well, that sounds good in theory, but the reality is people, we had a dispensary get put in just right across from us. And they talked about how they bought the building supplies from local community, and we support the community, and they're going to be making tax dollars and stuff. But, they make it sound good, but when their employees are out there getting high, and you can't do this in public, you're not supposed to. And the business owners will say, well, we're not the cops, we can't tell our employees what to do. Okay? But that's the reality, then the people would come out there, they're lined up against the fence, sitting there with their hair disheveled and their dirty clothes, getting high, and I don't know what the deal is, but the cops would not enforce that. You can't have an open container in Great Falls, but boy, you can sure smoke up. And is it illegal? Yes. Can you do it? 100%. It is not enforced. And I don't know why that is or how that occurred, but I can see that happening here in Miles City too. I don't know why Great Falls would be so different from Miles City. And that's a big reason why I moved. There were other reasons, of course. I'm a small town guy, and Great Falls is pretty big for me. But that was a big issue for me. And even at work, since it was legal, a lot of people would go out on their break, smoke, come back to work, go out to lunch, smoke some more, some would get blasted, come back to work.
Okay.
And,
Okay. Well, we appreciate that and your insight on it here a little bit, but.
Okay, well, I'll just wrap it up here.
Okay.
It's just really not fun to work with people that are mentally altered. And I just wish there was more enforcement of it. If there was, treated more like alcohol or something, where it's kept out of the hands of, or just, I don't know. Anyway, I need to stop talking.
Okay.
Thank you, bye.
All right, thank you. All right behind you, he had a question.
I think that this will probably needs to go to Mike also, but I'm wondering just medicinally, if it's a class 1 and it can't be tested, the testing that Z's referring to is actually referring to the level of CDC or the compounds there. But what about all the other chemicals? Who studies that? Is FDA's not?
Well, and the studies that I was talking about was like clinical studies on the use of it with people, like testing it on someone with epilepsy or for whatever. I wasn't talking about the chemical analysis of it. Does that answer your question, Tom?
Okay, well, this was full of a lot of information tonight, and we appreciate everybody being here. And I guess one thing that concerns me is that the word high was used over and over and over again. It produces a high. And to me, that equates with you are drunk. And it's kind of in the same category. So where does that line drawn where you cannot be out there driving around our kids or with our mom and dad coming the opposite direction? Where is that line drawn? Do you know, Jeff?
Well, Mike will tell you too, there's laws against driving under the influence of marijuana. There has been for years.
Yeah, okay.
And now there's a nanogram level to where they prove that they are under the influence based on studies, scientific evidence that at this point of your nanogram level of your blood, that you have that much THC in there, you're not capable of safely operating a motor vehicle. just like alcohol.
Okay,
So you're gonna have any drug that can be, get you high. Opioids,
right.
alcohol, cannabis, THC, you're gonna have problems with people under the influence of driving. And there are laws against that. That doesn't stop people from crashing into people and killing them. That,
Exactly, yes.
unfortunately, that happens.
Okay. And I know one term that we came across as we were working on this was marijuana is a gateway drug, and that seemed to set the rockets off all over the place. And I found out that alcohol and tobacco are also gateway drugs. And so to put it in that terminology, is that a healthy look at it?
Okay. So now I've had these talks for decades.
Okay.
And the biggest gateway drug, marijuana, obviously you talk to addicts, that's typically one of the drugs they start with earlier. Did that cause them to go to other things? Who knows? But studies have shown nicotine and alcohol given to children while their brains are still developing under the age of 21, 22 years old, devolves their brain to the point to seek out pleasures of substances. Children that use nicotine and alcohol, when they're used, are far more likely to become addicts when they're adults. That's based on the scientific studies. So truly, those are gateway drugs. But any kind of thing that triggers the receptors in your brain to the pleasure centers in your brain, when you're young, they're going to seek that stuff. So
Okay.
it's not just marijuana.
Okay.
There's a lot of stuff. So people that allow their kids to chew, smoke, and have alcohol at home because it's safe, program your kids to be addicts as adults.
Okay, all in the same category, yeah. Alrighty, well, I hope we've answered some questions for you. I hope you were able to see both sides of the spectrum here, and there is a benefit in the medical end here, and we need to keep that viable for people. But there comes a thin line where it becomes abuse, and I guess that's what we're concerned about, and to keep it in a space where it's healthy for our families. Do you guys have any last comments on anything, or? All right, well, help me thank them, and thank you guys all for being here.